From Harrison, New Jersey, it's the Audi 2017 MLS Cup playoffs, and after a record-breaking year, these Toronto FC fans see if their side can go further in the MLS Cup playoffs. Expect a fast, frantic, up-tempo game between two teams that like to attack as Toronto FC's 2017 postseason gets underway here with the Eastern Conference semi-final first leg in New York against the Red Bulls. Toronto FC 90 minutes away from a return to MLS Cup. Columbus Crew hoping to make their third MLS Cup appearance. As for the Toronto FC lineup tonight, they welcome back their front two of Jozy and Sebastian Giovinco after suspension, and Greg Vanny goes back to a more familiar lineup with Eric Zabaleta returning in defence. Greg Berhalter makes two changes to the Columbus lineup, including missing Artur in midfield, who's suspended.
A very attacking Columbus Crew lineup here, put out by Greg Berhalter. Pedro Santos in that left wing back position, change in formation to a 3-4-2-1.
Sportsfeld!
It is Sportsfeld Storytime. We are looking back to championship time in this city. It's time to remember that fleeting moment of two fleeting moments in a 5-year span where the Toronto FC, any Toronto team at all, as a matter of fact, was able to win something. I don't think we're ever going to do. Jake, tell me if I'm wrong, and you can correct me if one day you want to do this. I don't think we're ever going to do. Remember when Toronto Marlies won the AHL? Probably not happening.
I forgot that even happened. So yeah,
it's all pretty much the same era. There's Dubas shouting at the Calder Cup. That's pretty good.
Sure, I'll take your word for it.
So yeah. Anyway, we last episode went through the unbelievable 2017 regular season that Toronto FC went through, punctuated with 2 6-game winning streaks in a 34-game season. They were top of the pops. They had a 12-point advantage in the standings, which is incredible. They were number one with a bullet, 20 wins, 5 losses, 9 draws, a plus 37 goal differential in 34 games. All of that earned them a playoff matchup. 2 legs in the conference semifinals, started off against the New York Red Bulls. Jake, what do you remember first and foremost about this pre-MLS Cup playoff run in the first place?
I remember that for the first leg, or the first round, I guess, I was still in Montreal doing the play one of the times, and it was one of those, I really hope they go far enough for me to get to BMO for some games. But it was also just like confidence until the game started. And then the first two, they were squeakers. Like especially from the season before, where they sort of handily beat Philly in the sort of playoff round. Then they crushed New York City FC. And then even though the Montreal game was a classic, it was goal filled and lots of high scoring and all that. And then the first 2 rounds of the 2017 playoffs were just like tight games of like sort of holding on to squeak by. And I'd sort of thought, perhaps naively, that from the way that the regular season went, it was going to be a cakewalk. But that was not the case.
Yes, we had mentioned last time that if you look at their regular season results, it's littered with like 4-0s and 3-1s and 2-0s, and there's a 5-0 in there, and they blow out. You name the team that NYCFC comes in, their second best team, they get blown out 4-0. They take on LA Galaxy, blow them out 4-0. You like anybody that was a good team, they made a point to absolutely crush. Chicago was a good team. They beat them 3-1. So there was like every reason to believe that they would come into this and really run roughshod. And it did not happen that way. The first game is against New York Red Bulls in Red Bull Arena in New Jersey. And Vasquez, who we talked about in the first episode of this month, it just like was a real dream ad. He scores in the 8th minute to make it 1-0 for the FC.
I will admit, I don't remember this leg at all. I think cause like we were doing the show at this, like I may have probably had a show that night. So I don't remember these games at all against New York, other than like checking the score and hoping that things would go the right way.
They would give up a penalty on the other end. Royer, 45th plus 3. So right at halftime, they give up a penalty. But it's Giovinco. Who the F else? 72nd minute. Giovinco puts them up 2-1.
It is Giovinco! Sebastian Giovinco puts Toronto FC back in front. He is almost unstoppable from free kicks.
Look at this one. I got to say, Robles is at fault yet again, though. Tried to put a man back in the line. He goes too late. Absolutely incredible free kick. Yet again.
That would hold through the first leg, and the second leg they actually lose 1-0. But the 2 road goals, the Gio second goal ends up being a huge deal, as it's double red at halftime. New York and Toronto. Altidore gets thrown off, and Cleiston gets thrown off at the half. I mean, was this the one that
they fought in
the tunnel? Yes.
Yeah. They got into a fight going off the pitch, and I remember there was big concern of Jozy being suspended for it.
Yes, that is correct. They get carded at 34 each, and then thrown out on the second yellow with a red in the 45th plus 2, as you said, going into the tunnels at halftime. There's a dust up. Bradley also picks up a card in that, and Wright Phillips scores in the 53rd to make it 1-0 Red Bulls in the second leg. But of course, the 2-goal aggregate is enough to get Toronto through to the conference finals, where they would await the Columbus Crew.
The rival, I guess, current rival, Columbus Crew. But to your point also, or not to your point, to the previous note, no Jozy Altidore in this one, and no Sebastian Giovinco in this one for TFC, which I gotta say, didn't feel good going into the game.
On the road, basically, we just need to hold on, right? You're basically, if you can get a road goal, that's great. But on the road, without your 2 absolute premier guys, it is, sphincter clenching, a tight one. And they, it's Ricketts, Hasler, Osario, Vasquez, Delgado, Bradley, Betashore, Moore, Mavinga, Moro, and Bono. And they played them to the draw. I mean, they managed to get out with a 0-0 draw, but sort of not the best you can hope for, but pretty darn close given the situation of their lineup.
Yeah, I do remember this, and I remember that was sort of I don't want to say the goal, because they're, it's the away leg. You always want to get one, but I definitely think it was the overwhelming thought was like, just survive without Seba and Jozy, and then you get to bring it back to Toronto and go from there. And
bring it back to Toronto they would, in front of the BMO Field crowd. This is to get them back to the MLS Cup in back-to-back years. They need to beat Columbus at home in front of the crowd. Do you remember this one?
I do. I believe so. I've been trying to remember if I was at this game or not. I'm pretty sure I was, but I'm not 100%. But I'm pretty sure I was at this one. And I don't know why I can't remember, because like rewatching the highlights, I'm like, I remember all of this, but I'm just like not sure because my brain is broken. But it's the playoffs and they needed, and it's Jozy, and in 2016, 2017, as we talked about, he just shows up and does what needs to be done.
Giovinco will bring this one down here up against Menson. Into the path of Altidore and Vasquez, back to Jozy Altidore! Jozy Altidore! When Toronto FC needed a hero, Jozy Altidore delivers on the hour mark. 1-0 at BMO Field.
Right on the hour mark, TFC come good. And it was a hopeful ball forward that
Sebastian Giovinco does it tremendously well. Then the patience and composure of Vasquez just to take that touch, wait for Jozy Altidore to make the run. Brilliant run that it was. Weight of pass terrific. What a finish from Jozy Altidore. Almost left this field 5 minutes ago with an ankle injury. Strapped it up, stepped back on this field, and he gives TFC the all-important 1-0.
Just about an hour in, it's a classic. You watch it, and Seba has 5 guys like guarding him. He somehow gets it to Vasquez, and Jozy breaks through an unreal pass from Vasquez to hit him perfectly in stride. But man, if this isn't the beginning of this goal, isn't exactly what it was like for so many of the goals for this team. Like Giovinco brings it down, and 2 defenders can't take it off him. So a third guy, the midfielder, holds back and tries to square him off. He dribbles through that. The winger comes back and tries to cut that angle off. That doesn't work. The guy that was guarding Jozy comes back and tries. Literally, I'm looking at the pass he makes to Jozy. There are 6 Columbus crew either right beside him or looking at him, trying to stop this pass, and he managed. That's half the team is guarding Giovinco on this play. Like, that's unbelievable.
Yeah, and it was also like I guess sort of the theme that I felt throughout these playoffs, which I don't know how accurate this is with sort of the general mindset of the TFC fan base, but I know this was the mindset for the finals, which we'll talk about in a sec. But it all kind of felt like, oh God, it's the final of 2016 is happening again.
Yes.
It's like a great team can't break down the door. And then just like both games have Jozy scoring around the hour mark. And it's just like joy and relief. And it's good stuff.
There is some sloppy play in the early part. Like they give up that 2-on-1 in about 20 minutes in, and they really think Columbus should get a chance off. And Bradley, with the crazy run back and the diving stop, 25 minutes in, they have a corner that there's a no call. And the one thing, if you want to, the team did talk to the refs an awful lot. That was one. Team did love to yell at the referees. So it goes.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. Fuck it. Yell at them.
There's a penalty in the 26th. I sort of brush over it. Not a no call. There's a penalty, and it's Vasquez, and he is stopped on a penalty. And you want to talk about worrying about the previous MLS Cup? This was the like, oh my God, how is this going to go? I do remember that because they have more than their fair share of chances, as does Columbus. Like, I guess the difference is there are at least chances in this game, but it's not crazy to see this going sideways and being yet another sort of BMO Field meltdown. A
lot of holding the breath in these last 2 games of the season.
But again, the unbelievable Seba goal, and then they all they have to do is hold on for an hour. There's a corner in the 80th. That causes a bit of a kerfuffle that they're able to clear away. Surprisingly, honestly, a fairly strong defensive team. I will say, for all the offensive fireworks, they when they needed to defend, especially in this playoffs, like they don't give up a whole heck of a lot.
They were solid, and the midfield really was good at controlling everything.
Columbus really pressuring on. They have a cross that gets flicked on a header, and a guy backdoor, absolutely wide open, and is unable to convert it. Your last reel, right through his feet. And then the 95th, last second, goalie is picked up. Shot gets blocked. Whistle goes. Toronto FC is headed back to their second consecutive MLS Cup final. And once again, Jake, it is going to be hosted at BMO Field in Toronto. I know you said you can't remember whether or not you were at the stadium for this. Do you remember the immediate aftermath of beating Columbus and being ready to go for the MLS Cup?
It was just like, it was sort of that thrill of making the final again, but also the fact that it was going to be in Toronto again. Like, it sort of felt, I don't want to say second chance but it just, I remember it was sort of, at least from purely my personal perspective, which is really what matters in all this.
Of course.
It was such a thrill in 2016 to be literally at a finals, especially like after the fun of and the expectation of the Blue Jays in 2015, which you and I went to a lot of the games, and we sort of had that feeling of like, we're going to get to go to like the World Series. And then with TFC in 2016 being like, I'm at, because like it's Toronto, right? Like no Toronto team had been in a final since the Jays in 93 at this point. Other than, I guess, the Marlies or the Argos.
And Wolfpack.
Yeah. But it felt cool to be like at a final. And then I personally spent most of 2017 being like from my own selfish perspective, as much as I wanted like team success, I wanted to go to another final and experience, because like we talk this all the time, I'm a big sports crowd guy.
Yes.
And so it was like, I wanted to be in that crowd again. I wanted that crowd environment and that fun and that like hanging on every moment with 30,000 people again. Because it's fun as hell. And so I remember, the fact that in 2016, we had to sort of be like, okay, well, they finished ahead of Seattle. Like there was like the 4-5 or whatever the seeding was. They kind of lucked into hosting it. And then this time it was like, we're the first place team. Let's just get to the finals so we can host the final again. And so it was sort of this mix of like really excited that the team is good, but the team was also sort of, I kind of felt like I expected them to be there because they were so good. Like I think they were literally statistically, at least at the time, the best MLS team ever. So it was kind of like, of course they're going to be in the final. But then to actually be there and be like, all right, we're going again, was just like, it was real exciting. It was real exciting.
They did get back, and another beautiful opportunity and a much more fun and much more exciting game. We will talk about that and what comes after next week on a new episode of Sportsfeld Storytime.